So I want to talk a little bit about the way the Post-Star runs its agenda there in Glens Falls, New York. The reality of the news that they claim is news, it's all a private agenda of the Glens Falls Post-Star and their little gang of politicians that run Warren County, which happen to run all the banks and all the insurance companies, and you know, they're connected directly into the Democratic ultra left-wing liberal agenda there in the North Country, sort of like North Country Public Radio and a lot of the other news media, the alleged news media in New York. The thing that reveals these people is they don't want to talk about that toilet lake George, and they don't want to talk about the toilet lake Champlain and the massive flushing, the repeated flushings up and down waters on Lake George, New York, that have destroyed so many islands, destroyed the shoreline, destroyed boathouses, destroyed huge numbers of docks, including the marina docks of Clifford and Anita Witham. They don't want to talk about this stuff because it reveals the thousands of brown fields, the septic tank leach systems all around Lake George. They're all leaking into Lake George. The only reason the lake isn't like pine tree green is because they flush huge amounts of water out of the lake in the wintertime drawdown. Now the historical records, the court testimony, the allegations from the New York State Attorney General, the allegations from the New York State Conservation Commission, the court records of New York State are full of the details. But the Glens Falls Post-Star doesn't want to discuss any of it because it doesn't fit their agenda. You see, folks, the algae blooms, the many millions, it's going to cost billions before it's all over, because they're not just going to have to, you know, come up with an idea. They spent millions making a plan. Give me a break. That was all just money to their political cronies. The governor of the state of New York gave millions to his political supporters upstate to study the problem. And then, of course, they're talking about road salt and how road salt causes the algae blooms. And the answer to that is oh, nonsense. It's all the septic systems all over Cleverdale, all over Assembly Point, all up and down Pilot Knob, all over the Dunham's Bay area, especially all the way from Dunham's Bay to like the Garrison and East Cove, all that east side of Lake George. All those septic systems drain right into the lake. The $1 Million beaches had repeated sewage problems. The village of Lake George, repeated sewage problems, all the way up to Bolton Landing, Diamond Point. There's sewage running into the lake from all the brownfields, all the septic tanks, all the way around the lake, all the way up to Baldwin's Landing, all the way up to Ticonderoga, and then back around to Hewlett's Landing and on down to Pilot Knob. The thousands and thousands of septic tank leach fields, the brown fields of Lake George. Post-Star doesn't want to talk about it. They haven't called me one time. They haven't called me to discuss it once. And I'm the guy that posted all the historical records. I'm the guy that did the research. I'm the guy that crawled in their face, right up in their grill. We need to talk about all those lake flushings. All the times they flushed Lake George with the giant dam there, the giant toilet flusher at Ticonderoga. Now, does the Glens Falls Post-Star want to discuss it like adults? And the answer is no. They're dead silent. They don't want the truth out. They want to blackball certain witnesses to the fact that the mill pond is a big giant toilet flusher. They've been destroying Lake Champlain for decades. What do you think all that sewage does when they flush it down the Lachute River? Yeah, it goes to Lake Champlain and turns Lake Champlain green as an evergreen tree. So to the publishers and the owners and the editors at the Glens Falls Post-Star, you're fake news. You don't tell half the story. You don't tell a quarter of the story. And the Post-Star, you know, I've tried to work with you people for many years. And not anymore. Mr. Nice Guy's over. The gauntlet's down. Donald Trump, he called the news media the enemies of the people. Well, the Post-Star, you're the enemy of the people because you don't print the truth. You don't print the facts. And you whitewash and sugarcoat everything for your political agendas. Same way you run Glens Falls, Lake George, and Warren County in Queensbury. The same thing in Queensbury. Warrensburg, Bolton Landing, you know, all over the whole region. The Glens Falls Post-Star has got an agenda, which happens to be the agenda of the Glens Falls banks, the Glens Falls Paper Company, the Ticonderoga Paper Companies, the Lake George Paper Companies, Finch Prine, International Paper, and the Glens Falls Insurance Company, along with Hercules and Glens Falls Cement and, you know, Barton Mining. And, oh God, let's not mention Bartlett, Pontiff, Stewart, and Rhodes. Let's not mention Richard Bartlett and that whole gang from the Lake George, Lake Champlain Planning Commission, or the Lake George Association. You know, the fund for Lake George. How many times has Lake George been flushed like a great big old giant toilet? And every single time the lake gets flushed, huge amounts of island, boathouse, and dock damage. Frank Lee and Bruno wrote about it. Irving Langmuir wrote about it. John Apperson wrote about it. And guess what? The Swamp Fox, the son of the Swamp Fox, Swamp Fox News has been writing about it, along with the Lake George Adirondacks Free Press and a bunch of other news media. That the Glens Falls Post-Star, the Albany Times-Union, the Troy Record, and the Lake George Mirror. Oh God, the Lake George Mirror won't touch this with a freaking 10-foot pole. So to the publisher editor of the Glens Falls Post-Star, man, Donald Trump's got they got your number. The Glens Falls Post-Star is a political agenda rag sheet that doesn't have the spine to interview me. They don't have the, let's go on video. Let's have a video conference and talk about the millions and billions of gallons of sewage that have been flushed from Lake George over to Lake Champlain. The Post-Star ain't got the berries. You people don't have the ethics or the morals to tell the whole story. And that goes out to an awful lot of people in Queensbury. There's a lot of politicians in Queensbury and Warren County that will not ever tell the truth. They got political agendas, and that's to protect their cash cow, their great big cash cow, their great big party, you know, the party town there where you swill down all the booze and you get drunk and drink all the beer and eat all the pizza up at Lake George, and you fill the local revenue, you fill the coffers, you fill the tax revenue coffers of the local governments. Nobody wants to talk the truth about the missing sewers. Where's the conventional sewers around Lake George? They don't want to talk about it. All they want to do is talk about studying it with the Darren Freshwater Institute, their buddies, and RPI University, their pals, who are getting huge amounts of money from state revenues to play games and study everything. All they're doing is studying it. But when this guy right here started publishing the truth all over the world, when this guy right here got right up in Governor Cuomo's grill and published these stories all over the world, oh gee, golly whiz, we've come up with a brand new plan. We got a plan to deal with the algae blooms. I'll tell you how to deal with the algae blooms. Let's talk about the septic tanks, all the septic systems of the fabulously wealthy that control the Lake George Basin. And the Lake George Association, you know, the Lake George Park Commission, Tom West, the attorney for the fund for Lake George. Let's talk about it, Kathy Bozzoni and Tom West. and we can get Chris Novinsky, the Lake George waterkeeper. Let's talk about all this stuff, Darren Freshwater Institute. But oh no, they just want to stuff their bank accounts with money from the state tax revenues to fund the ultra left-wing, ultra liberal political agenda of the Cuomo machine. And the more and more and more and more land mafia. All that Adirondack Park stuff and the Lake George Land Conservancy, it's all about grabbing real estate all over the whole area. But will they talk about the truth? The cancer rates, the radioactive geology, all the poisons and toxins that are pumped into the air by the local industries? And the answer is the Glens Falls Post-Star, they sugarcoat it, they whitewash it, and they don't tell half the story. They don't even tell a quarter of the story. So to the Glens Falls Post-Star, no more Mr. Nice Guy. You people haven't called me one single time. And when your publisher blocked me, when Ken Tinsley there, when old Tinsley blocked me, that's the equivalent of hanging up the phone. So to Ken Tinsley and the Glens Falls Post-Star, y'all the enemies of the people. We're going to leave it right there, folks. And as always, hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha, we're definitely coming back.